Hey guys, John here. Today we're making this pad and face plant with the new Granular Generator. Okay, so let's dive into this patch here. So up top, we have 4 macros here. The first one's going to be the cutoff, and that's if we want to make this patch a little bit less ambient, kind of a little bit more in our face. So right now, it's kind of something like this. Something kind of in the background. However, we can always increase this here. Make it a little bit more epic right here. Then next up, we have some resonance. And then for the third one over here, this is going to be effects, which is basically going to be our chorus, delay, and then our reverb. And then the last one's going to be just the granular generator over here. So in case we want to have a little bit less of that, a little bit more, we can kind of always come up to this macro down over here, or up over here. So basically, without these other saw waves, it would sound something kind of like this. Which is very cool because with kind of ambient or either epic pads, we can always add this type of granular texture into the pad and really make it, I guess, come to life, really spice up the sound here. So let's go ahead and enable these here back to normal. This patch is pretty simplistic to make, but it's also very effective. We're really just using 2 saw waves, the granular engine, a filter with some modulation, some EQ, some corrective EQ more so, and then some chorus, delay, and reverb, and timing 2 different types of envelopes. So it's a very simplistic recipe, but it goes a long way, especially adding this engine over here, or this generator. So with that being said, I have a fresh copy over here of Faceplant, so let's go ahead and build something like this from scratch. So really, we're not going to make the exact thing for every specific value. We're just going to practice doing this type of method, this kind of recipe, right? Because you can make different types of foods with the same recipe, but it's always going to taste slightly different for every single time you bake it. So for this first demonstration here, let's go over here and let's add an analog engine, and let's go ahead also and add another one. So we have 2 right over here. So the first one, we're going to leave this one alone. Level's fine. The tuning is fine. But for the second one, let's bring this level down to maybe like 20-something%, 24, 25, around there. And for this, let's bring down our master gain a little bit just so it's not hurting our ears. Something kind of like that for now. And then we can boost it later on. So for the second saw wave down over here, let's right-click the semi and go to -12. So we're bringing this down 1 octave. So we have something like that. Now, this low end saw is more so kind of a texture, really kind of just holding a little bit of the low end and letting this first saw wave kind of take the center stage, right? You can bring it down maybe 22 or something like that. So now we're really going to be using 2 envelopes. So our amp envelope here, we do want quite a long attack here. So maybe like 3 or 4 seconds. Something like that. Maybe, yeah, around 4. And then we're going to go to our release and maybe make this around maybe 4, 5-ish, kind of tail end of 4, almost getting to 5, something kind of like that. Something kind of like that. And our decay and sustain, let's not worry about those for now because this envelope seems kind of okay. So we're first going to build this patch, and then we're going to add the granular generator later so we can kind of mix that into the sound that we already want here. So really, the first thing that we want to think about is what kind of filter do we want to have for this. And I think for the best sound for this kind of patch here, I really like the ladder filter, so I'm going to select that here. Now for our cutoff, it's going to be quite low, so we're going to go down here to maybe like 115, 120-ish area, something like that. So it's almost low end, and we can't really hear it, so let's increase this here. So something kind of like that. So now we want to modulate this opening. So this is where we're going to want to get another envelope. So let's go down here to modulators. Let's add another envelope. And then let's go to the plus, and then let's select the cutoff. And this is where we kind of want to see how much of this we want, right? So we hold this down here before we really adjust our settings here. And as we hold down this note, kind of just listen to where we want this to cut off. If you want more brightness, we can always add that later with a macro. But for now, maybe something like that. We can maybe back it off a little bit. because this is going to start off ambient, and then later on we can always open up the filter with the macro. So something like this might be kind of nice, right? That amount. So now go ahead and click off that. So we have our modulation set up here, but we also need to change this envelope here. So with this attack, let's always bring this up here to maybe 2-3 seconds, something like that. Something like that. And then I always personally like to make this curve here a little bit more concave, rather, or convex than concave, because down here it just doesn't sound too good to my ears, but that's always up to you. But my personal preference is always kind of going like that. Okay, so now we need to lower the sustain here quite substantially, maybe like 49, 50, something kind of like that. Increase our decay a little bit so it's not too abrupt. And then maybe do the same thing with that curve, something kind of like that. So now we need to change the release. Maybe something also quite long, something like, I don't know, 4 seconds, something like that might be fine. Okay, so now we basically have our 2 oscillators here set up fine. We have our amp envelope okay. Our modulation for our cutoff is going to be good. Now, I did like the diode sound a little bit better. That's always up to preference. So something very important with this type of patch here, especially in phase plant. So now with our different lanes here, let's play some notes. And as you notice, once we add new notes, it's going to cut off our voices. And we don't really want that sound, so make sure to select poly. And also for lane 2, let's select poly as well, because we're going to be using this lane as well in just a little bit here. So now we have this basic sound here. So what we need to do is kind of do a little bit of corrective EQ, and maybe we can do something like the slice EQ, something like that. Let's go over here to edit, and let's go over here to the left and kind of drag in a little bit of a kind of a filter here, kind of cutting out these lows. Maybe something around 60 or something like that. Let's add another point over here, and generally around like 120, 150 around there can be a little bit harsh, or not harsh, but like too muddy. So we're going to kind of bring that down a little bit here. And we can always adjust this a little bit later on. So let's bring our envelope down a little bit here for our attack, maybe somewhere around the 3s. Okay, so something like that seems like it's working pretty well over here. So now maybe we want to add some different types of effects here. So one of the first things I kind of like to add here is going to be a chorus. So let's go down here over to chorus, and let's see how that sounds. Let's go to taps 3. And this is kind of really just filling up the mix here. And for this patch, I do like to have the mix all the way 100% in the mix. And let's increase our depth a little bit to like maybe 4.45 or 4.4, something like that. Let's drop the rate down maybe to 0.4, somewhere around there. So something like this is getting pretty good. So the next thing we want to do to really kind of keep the sound around a little bit while we're going to be changing chords, right? Because we don't want such an abrupt change, but we kind of don't really also want to change our envelopes. And something like this is nice if we add some delay for this type of effect here. So let's go ahead and add delay. And for this situation, I'm going to go to sync, and then let's go over here to 1/4, something kind of like that. And you can always change this to time or something like that to whatever suits your session. But for this demonstration, we're going to go 1/4. And as I let go, that delay is kind of still ringing out, still kind of giving us some space to kind of switch around our chords and our notes. So let's go ahead and bring this gain up just a little bit more here, something like this, so we can hear it a little better. All right, so one of the last things for our effects, like I said, it's a very simplistic recipe, but it's also very effective here, is going to add some reverb into this here. So let's bring up the size. We want to make a big epic pad. And then also bring up the mix maybe to like 35 or 40. And this is good, very good also for ambient or epic. It really depends on how we're going to set up our macros in just a little bit here. So now this is the point where we're going to bring up a little bit more volume here. So now this is going to be the point where we're going to bring in our granular engine and really just try to, or the granular generator, and really just try to kind of get some texture in there, because we have the bass sound. It's very soft, it's round. but sometimes adding this granular really kind of spices things up a little bit. So let's go here and add it over here on the granular section. And for this demonstration where it says no sample loaded, I went in here and went to grains, I did additive, and I did, whoops, that was kind of quick, additive chaotic saw, something like this. And then let's maybe bring this level down a little bit here. So let's kind of focus first on the granular right over here. So for this demonstration, I kind of move this over here to the middle, something like that. And then over here on the right-hand side, this grain midpoint, I changed this to bipolar because I kind of want them going kind of around this curve here. And you can always change where you want this to go, maybe over here, depending on the texture that you're looking for. But I kind of put mine somewhere around in the middle for that section there. And I believe I also did increase this by 1 octave, so let's go to 12. So we're kind of getting something like that here. Now, I also like to do a little bit of pitch variation right here to maybe like 0.3 or something like that. So let's bring this volume up now. And this is kind of something that we're going to be going with. And then also now for this demonstration, we can always bring up our cutoff here just a little bit for our envelope. Maybe just kind of overall bring this up to like 130. So that's a really cool texture sound to really kind of mix in with our pad here. And then it's also going through all of our effects here. So it kind of makes this round pad a little bit more interesting to work with. So now if we add everything together, okay, so now we're in a spot where we're pretty much dialed in. Now we want to apply some of our macros. So our first one, let's go to cut off right over here for this first guy. And then for our second one, let's label this res for our resonance. And then we had effects. And then we have this granular at the end. So we have them all named, so now we need to map them. So for our cutoff here, let's go ahead and select the plus here. And then let's select this plus here and kind of just increase to maybe a certain amount that we might like. And a little goes a long way here. So like if we bring up our cutoff over here, that might be a little bit too much. So we can always go down here and kind of back it off maybe to like 20% or something like that. Because we're just going for little movements here. Something kind of like that might be nice. So the next one is going to be our resonance. So go ahead and select this plus here, and let's go down to our resonance and kind of just bring it up a little bit. Maybe like 22% might be fine here. And then, you know, we're really not getting too much of a big value, but with this filter here, especially with ladder filters, the more resonance you're going to add, the more low end you're going to lose. So that's kind of the trade-off there. And then next up, let's add our effects here. So for the first effects that we're going to be using is going to be our chorus. So remember, like we said before, that this chorus, for this patch here, it's kind of nice to have this at 100%. So what we can do is bring this down all the way to 0, because our effects are basically going to be all the way on all the time unless we want to take it away. That's kind of a nice way to add effects here. So let's select this plus here, and let's go to our mix, and then let's bring this all the way up to 100%. So now that is mapped. So basically, our effects are down at 0. Our chorus is also down at 0, up at 100%, and then it's also at 100%. Easy way to look at it there. So for our delay here, we're maybe at like 50% really. I might personally drop this normally down to like 39, 40, something kind of like that in that general area. But basically we're going to go to the plus, and then let's actually bring this down first initially. And let's go to our plus, and then let's kind of add maybe, like I said, 35, maybe 40%. So with 38.4 might be fine. And then last but not least, we have our reverb. So that was 40 that we had now. And let's say we like that sound. So let's bring this all the way down, and then go to the effects again, and then bring this up to about 40%, something kind of around there. So now we have our effects mapped. On and off is pretty easy right here, and we can see all these are moving accordingly. So awesome. And then now with our granular engine, let's go ahead and right click this down to 0% so we can use this granular, and let's select this here, and let's go to our level, and let's go to 100% or something like that. There we go, 100. Awesome. And as we increase this here, we can start to see our grains kind of moving around. So maybe something like this, once we're pretty much done here, we can always add some other stuff if we'd like to, or maybe some other textures in that. But that's pretty much this recipe to kind of make this like a droning ambient pad, but it can also be this nice epic pad depending on where we have our cutoff selected. So again, if we increase this kind of substantially, and there we go. So that's basically this new granular generator. It's very cool. I highly suggest you play with it here. And you can always select this here, which is kind of cool because you have a lot of stuff to choose from, which is really nice. So there's a lot to get lost in and a lot of time to spend in this synthesizer. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next video.